it's Keza, also known as Sky Loves Scary Movies, back with a brand new review series. As you guys know, it's my birthday month this month, so I decided to dedicate 31 of my favourite movies, even though I've got a lot more, but I want to do a review on each and every one of them. Now, tonight's film is a very special one. It's one of my favourites. And although I don't have a, how do you say it, a proper copy of it because it's very rare to get hold of, I had to get a bootleg / copy of this film. I absolutely adore this film. It's from 1994. So yes, I was 11 when this came out. But I've saw this film a total of 5 times, and you get to understand it each more every time you watch it. Well, put it this way, I have all this to get through, so bear with me. So, day 1 of 31 Days of Favourite Movies challenge. I am going to review the movie Dark Waters. No, not the Japanese version, and no, not the remake to the Japanese. This is on its own. It's directed by Mariano Baino. It's a Victor Zuev production. It's starring Louise Salter, Vanessa Simmons, Marie Katnist, like they're the main. And then there's like photography and who written it, and then the score. I'll tell you who done the score before we carry on. The score was, and the music was done by Igor Clark and Mario Baino. Written this, produced this, edited it, and yeah, and this was also set in parts of Kiev in the Ukraine, Moscow, Rome, Odessa and Crimea. So that's going back some way. So anyway, as always, before I carry on with this review, I'll write what I write down, and then I'll give you my thoughts. So this could take a while, so here we go. Movie starts out with nuns holding crosses, and then inside the church with a nun praying and a priest reading a book. Then the priest enters the church and walks around, and the nun knocks on the door, and all the church starts to crumble down and starts to flood, and the priest starts to drown, and then it goes back outside, and then the waves start to crash against the rocks, and the nun is holding something in her hand and climbs to the top of the cliff and looks to the sky and is pushed to her death on the rocks below, and whatever was held in her hands was smashed into pieces. Then 3 nuns are underground and put something in a box and then put into a wall and covers it in rocks. This was repeated quite a few times, which this was the first part of the movie was set 20 years ago, and then now I'm carrying on from 20 years after. Now 20 years later, there are people on a bus. For example, a young lady smoking, a lady laughing, a man smoking, a lady singing, a lady that's sweating profusely, a man with a ukulele, etc. And the lady who is known as Elizabeth is reading a letter from her friend Teresa on the bus. Meanwhile, back at what looks like a church, a lady drawing something in a book is watched by somebody, then goes to another room and looks out of the window. Meanwhile, Elizabeth looks out of the bus window and sees nuns with torches burning across. Then back at the underground of the church, the girl climbs a ladder and sees an underground church and nuns praying to flaming crosses. And then they're whipping themselves on their backs very hard. I think it's to like renounce their sins or something like that. It is a bit crazy, that bit. very hard, so the girl finds a box with one of the shattered pieces inside, holds above her head, and then is repeatedly stabbed in the back, and then is thrown into a water pool filled with her own blood, and then starts to paint on the wall. The bus is stopped and Elizabeth gets out and enters the gate and tries to ask somebody for help to the island, but at first the man says no, then bribes him but says no again, and then he says he will take her to the island but a week later for free. Then she walks out and somebody says that he will take her to the island, so she reluctantly agrees and gives him some money, and then they proceed to go on a boat together. So she climbs on the boat and into the cabin with the man and sees another man eating into raw fish, and the other guy says, "Don't mind him, he keeps all the bad things away." They get to the island and Elizabeth gets off the boat, and a blind woman sees her and has painted a picture. Meanwhile, another nun comes out and greets Elizabeth at the convent and starts to have a conversation about churches with electric light bulbs, etc. Then Sarah, that's the person that is introduced to her, takes a picture out of her pocket and asks who it is, and Elizabeth says it's her mum and that she's from this island. Then a knock at the door and Mother Superior is asking for Elizabeth. So they go and see Mother Superior and the blind nun. So the blind nun is helped down and Elizabeth sits with her and they begin to discuss things and even about money. Because Elizabeth says, because my dad was sending money to you, I'll still continue on to doing that. And prayer alone, not even prayer alone can even help them. That's what they were trying to say. And the nun says she will help Elizabeth while she is here, as Elizabeth goes back to her room and her things were taken away, as Sarah gives Elizabeth a letter from her friend Teresa, and then Elizabeth tries to sleep but has nightmares about the underground church, but is awakened by noise from the door and sees all of the nuns going out and following the flaming cross, and rattles are coming from another door, and the nuns are holding the crosses from above their head from outside the convent. Elizabeth is reading a scripture from the library and Sarah comes over and talks to Elizabeth and asks if Teresa visited the library. Sarah says no and says, "If you need me, I'll be in my room." So Elizabeth is in the library all alone and starts to read about a beast. And if anyone is blinded by the beast, they will see the true beast from within. She reads all about the beast and heaven and hell, then looks around and hears a noise, and then takes her lamp and sees a nun walking around with the flaming crosses and carries a dead body out of the underground church. So Elizabeth follows them down some stairs, then turns a corner, drops the lantern down and goes down a very creaky bridge, like steps, sees a Jesus form, lots of blood, painting, and a blind woman smells Elizabeth. Then Elizabeth falls from the bridge, sees the blind lady and found out that the nuns killed Teresa, and Sarah drags them out of the room, and Sarah saved Elizabeth and has a conversation with her about what happened about Teresa. Sarah has told Elizabeth that she will help her find out what is going on in the convent. So they're going to find out why. So Sarah takes Elizabeth to an attic and shows her a painting and talks about the paintings like some sort of oracle. And they see a picture of two girls carrying an amulet. Then Sarah goes and gets more light while Elizabeth looks at the painting in more detail. Then Elizabeth is dragged with a chain round her neck, but pushes the nun out of the attic. and Sarah rushes back to Elizabeth's aid, but Elizabeth don't want to stay here, but Sarah insists on staying with her in her room. So back in the room, and tells Sarah that she was born on this island and lived here until she was 7, and Sarah insists that she stays with her. Then Elizabeth hears a screaming child, then goes to find the voice. So Elizabeth goes to a dark passage and sees 2 girls laughing by a cross with a lady nun hanging from it. But it was all a dream/nightmare. Then Elizabeth sees the boat gone back to the mainland for another week, and goes to a nearby shop and starts to read a book. Then a man steps from the curtain with blood and hands and a knife, then asks about the mainland, and she asks about writing a letter, but it may take 2 weeks to send. Then starts to rummage through a bag, and then leaves, but walks outside and sees a lady sewing tapestry, and the lady is sewing the mask, and looks up to Elizabeth and finds that she's blind, and says that she's back. It's like saying that, oh, she's back, you're back. And Teresa talked about the beast in a letter and how she doesn't want it to be alive. Then a girl falls to her knees and starts to eat raw fish, but it's then realised it's Elizabeth that eats the raw fish, and then drinks some water and calls Sarah a liar, because this happens back at the convent. As Sarah didn't know about the boat and wants Sarah to leave her alone as she needs some rest, then she's having some sort of flashback with blood in her mouth and flowers in a table. And then Elizabeth runs after a lady who drops the tapestry, and then wanders back to the man at the shop and sees him throwing parts of what looks like fish guts, and is asked inside as he wants to show her something. And outside, the nuns are ringing bells with their fire crosses, and Elizabeth sees photographs and realises it's her mum that's blind. So she goes to her mum's house and because the mum's shouting, Anushka, 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 Anushka. And she says, my name's Elizabeth, not Anushka, and demands answers. Then a nun comes by and tries to burn the house down as she was trying to get answers. And the person that's supposed to be her mum runs out to the sea, crawls out of the sea, and demands to call her Anushka while screaming in pain. And their house continues to be burned down, with all the photos burning to a crisp. And Elizabeth weeps beside what's supposed to be a mum, and the nuns hold a picture of Elizabeth running away from the fire. And Sarah is now seen in the underground church, holds the amulet, buries it and hides, but also holds a candle. Then a nun is trying to stab her in the back, but there's a twist to that. Then nuns are outside a house with flaming crosses and looking for Elizabeth, and Elizabeth has found her way back to the underground church, looks at the Jesus on the cross, climbs on the Jesus and finds the amulet. And the blind woman looks around like she's like the nun, but she's blind, and bangs on the painting and rubs the amulet in the painting. And the other blind lady looks around even though she's blind. Then the nuns go to a banging door which flies open, and the nuns scream. Meanwhile, Elizabeth walks down a corridor, and another nun tries to stab her with a sword, but gives her like a shoulder, a little slice, and then tries to stab her in the face, and then smacks the nun's head onto the floor and is killed, then walks away. Then the blind lady paints another painting, and back in the underground church, Elizabeth is holding the amulet and tries to break the amulet, but then holds her amulet in her hand and starts to walk. This childlike screams, which are supposedly by Sarah's body, but there's something up with Sarah, I'll tell you in a minute, walks past her into a door But then here's Sarah's voice, so actually the body on the floor wasn't Sarah, it's somebody else. But finds out that Sarah is his sister, and Sarah is different to Elizabeth, and tells her she's mad, pushes her to the floor and starts to talk to her. Then another nun starts to pray, and Elizabeth asks where her mum is, so Sarah says to go and meet her, so Elizabeth does, then pushes the amulet together, and then she goes to this lady nun, rips into her flesh and tears her heart out, and blood is on the amulet. Then Elizabeth eats the heart, then picks up the amulet, gives it to the sister, and holds it up to the beast, because the beast also gave part of the heart to Elizabeth as well. But then Elizabeth smashes the amulet again, sees the beast and runs off, and the sister is crawled into the corner because she doesn't want to see the beast. Then right at the end, the rest of the nuns are killed off on the beach, and then somebody in black is carrying the amulet, which turns out to actually be Elizabeth, who ends up being blind by the beast, and she's now forever suffering it with her soul. So that's the gist of the film, and my thoughts on the film. It's kind of a bit weird in places, but overall it is a slow burner, so if you do like slow burners, then just keep on watching it, because it gets really good, and it has a great twist in the end, which I just told you about with the girl Sarah. I thought the way they portrayed that at the end, it was absolutely fabulous, the way Sarah turns out to be his sister, but Sarah's like, not like an evil twin, but she's just deformed in some way, which was really good. I love the effects on it, the way they done, and I like the beast. That's why it's so different. I also like the score with the music. That's why I mentioned the music in the beginning. And the overall concept of the film, the way it was set, and like how nuns are portrayed in an underground church. I like the way that was done. So, rating. I'll give this, we'll do this out of 10, because it's confusing if I do it out of 5 and out of 10. So I give it a 7 out of 10. And the reason for that is some scenes were really good, and I do actually recommend you guys watching it if you can find yourselves a copy of this, because it is rare and out of print, or if you can get it on like Netflix or something like that. I highly recommend you to go and watch it. So tomorrow's film is going to be something a bit different, so stay tuned for that. Of course, I hope you like this review, and I hope you enjoy what I'm going to be planning this month as well. So stay gaudy, have unpleasant dreams, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.